This is the history of Earth and the untold story of Atlantis. The story begins with our universe that exploded into existence over 50 trillion years ago at the hands of our Creator. Some may think of this as God, others may think of it as a source energy. But in fact, God is the manager of our said universe, and the Creator is all that is. This consciousness exists and experiences everything 100%, even down to the smallest particle. And it doesn't just stop at our universe. There's multiple universes being created all the time. Big bangs are happening as you're watching this video. These multiple universes rolled into one are known as the cosmos, and the cosmos is our Creator. Our Creator is obviously an entirely different creature than you or I, and nobody really knows exactly what it is. Many cultures describe it as all that is. Earth began its journey about 600 billion years ago, the majority of that time being in a gas state, and only in the last 70 billion years has it began to change. Slowly but surely, it started to take shape, eventually becoming what it is today. We humans refer to it as Earth, but in the galaxy, they refer to it as Terra or Gaia, and at one time, it was even referred to as Shan. And for about 69 of those 70 billion years, there was no actual species that inhabited the planet. So it wasn't until about 1 billion years ago that an alien race would finally find their way here. At this time, they referred to the planet as Hyperborea, and the beings, Hyperboreans. This was a society of humanoids that lived alongside dinosaurs and whale-like creatures. They were covered in hair, had long snouts and long ears, and were about 1.5 meters tall. It's believed that these beings lived in harmony and peace for millions of years, until it was interrupted by a malevolent species from the Orion constellation. It's not clear whether it was the Pleiadian civilization or the Andromedans that actually caused the disruption, but it led to the first Great Earth War, and it took place over 8 million years ago. This conflict would end with great nuclear fallout, and it resulted in the drastic thinning of our atmosphere, allowing for the sun's rays to reach the surface at a much harsher rate. The surviving Hyperboreans couldn't handle the intense UV rays, so they started dying off from radiation poisoning. As a result, they retreated to the subterranean pockets, but this made way for new civilizations to thrive. And one of these civilizations were responsible for the rise and fall of one of the greatest mysteries in the history of our planet, the city of Atlantis. But before the rise of Atlantis, there was another civilization that would establish themselves, and they would call their land Mu, or Lemuria. The Lemurians were a peaceful faction. They were pure love and light and one with Mother Nature. So around 8 million years ago, the Hyperborean civilization would fall. This was the result of an evil alien faction infiltrating their society and pitting them against other species on the planet. The first Great Earth War would ensue, and it would push the Hyperboreans into the subterranean pockets. Following this Great Earth War, it would be millions of years before another civilization would come to inhabit Earth. Not only because the natural disasters as a result of the nuclear war, but this was also because the good alien factions throughout the galaxy were devastated that the Hyperborean race didn't turn out. For so many years, they lived in harmony on Earth with species that they otherwise were at war with back at their homelands. For the longest time, the Hyperboreans were the epitome of good and love and light can prevail. But regardless of their pain, time passed and the Earth continued to grow. It wouldn't be till about 900,000 years ago that the Galactic Federation would find a waterborne primate on the Vega star system, and they figured that primate would work perfect on Earth. And it wasn't just as easy as the Galactic Federation just picking them up and placing them on Earth and they would thrive. There was much more to it than that. They had to consult different factions on different aspects of the species. They had to put them together and make sure that the primate would survive a new Earth. It's a rigorous process that can take many hundreds of thousands of years, and it wasn't until around 900,000 years ago that they dropped these primates on Lemuria, or Mu, and they called them the Lemurians. These primates didn't look anything like we do today, and their consciousness took tens of thousands more years to develop. Many believe that the crystal skulls played a large part in shaping this human consciousness. Galactic Federation and the good alien factions strategically placed these crystal skulls all over the earth. These skulls came in all different shapes and sizes. It's said that there's a total of 13 of them, many of which have been found, but the majority still remain hidden to this day. Some legend and lore states that if all 13 of these crystal skulls are brought together, humanity will reach a consciousness and a power unparalleled to anything we've ever seen. So in this magical land of Mu, we flourished, and we became the guardians of Mother Nature and her essence. Around 700,000 years later came Atlantis. So almost 700,000 years after the Lemurians arrived on Earth, they established Atlantis. It was around 210,000 BC. It was located about 1,500 kilometers off the coast of Europe and Africa. It was a paradise. It stayed at around 77 degrees Fahrenheit the entirety of the year. The land was made up of many volcanic eruptions throughout history, so the grounds were very fertile. Atlantis and the Atlantians reached the pinnacle of human existence, not just technologically, but spiritually as well. They were one with Mother Nature. They could communicate with the wildlife, which was much different than ours is today. It was such a beautiful paradise that animals from other realms visited Atlantis and lived there. The airspace was filled with airplanes. The people also built submarines, and they had free energy that was powered by quartz crystals. They even had a type of holographic television system, and if they created any waste, it was dematerialized and broken down. Everything was in harmony. Throughout the year, they held many ceremonies and gatherings with the Lemurians and other neighboring tribes. They'd celebrate their love for one another, their unity, and especially their love and connection with Mother Nature. Indigenous populations referred to it as the Old Red Land, or the Island of Flame. This was because the soil on Atlantis was red, because it was so rich in copper and fertile. In addition to all this, a rare metal known as orichalcum could be harvested there, and it was laden throughout the city's buildings. For the longest time, many scientists didn't believe that it even existed, until in the last few years, a shipwreck produced 39 pieces of it. They were in such understanding and oneness with Mother Nature, they were able to grow and harvest 2 crops a year. This allowed them to easily feed the 20 million souls that inhabited the island. It was surrounded by beautiful coral reef unlike anything we've ever seen today. The lowlands, that covered 200,000 square kilometers, had miles of irrigation systems running throughout the entirety of it. They were used for the crops and by means of travel. Crystal energy was used throughout the entirety of Atlantis. They even had a portion of it that they called Emerald City. With the use of starlight, sunlight, and psychic energy, the quartz crystals would vibrate and communicate with each other over large distances. This enabled them to literally power everything through the airwaves, kind of like Wi-Fi now. This harmonious way of living went on for tens of thousands of years, and only in the last 26,000 year cycle did it change drastically. The disruption started when an evil alien faction convinced beings in Atlantis to open a stargate in the atmosphere, allowing them into our world. Stay tuned, y'all.